Welcome to week number 5, everyone. I hope that you had a good week last week. I know my face is sort of in the crack here, but that's all right. It'll be fixed in a second. Let's see what we've got going on this week. So, as a quick review of what you learned last week, you learned about cellular respiration, which is part of metabolism. And metabolism just means all the chemical reactions that are happening inside cells, and that also means in organisms. So you learned about cellular respiration in the form of aerobic respiration, anaerobic respiration, and fermentation, ways to make ATP from food. You also learned about photosynthesis, which is a way to make food that some organisms on the planet do, from using sunlight energy and carbon dioxide and water to make glucose. Okay, so this week is all about DNA. Yay, DNA. Wait a minute. Yay, DNA. One of my best weeks. Read chapters 10, 14, and 15. At least skim through them. Remember, you have an OpenStax textbook, which means it is free. It is online. It is searchable. Skim through these chapters, 10, 14, and 15. 10 is about cell reproduction. 14 is about DNA, the molecule itself, and how it replicates. And 15 is about how DNA is used to make the proteins through transcription and translation to processes in cells. And this is in all cells, prokaryotic, eukaryotic. Read the Module 5 overview. There's one typo in there about pyrimidines, but don't worry about it. You'll see the right information in other places. And watch the videos. A couple are good. The Khan Academy video is a little bit long, I think, but the others are good. But anyway, take a look at those. The discussion board postings this week that you have will be about cancer. So what is cancer anyway? Cancer is your cells that are dividing out of control. And many times those cancer cells will move from their original location to other locations, and that is called metastasis. All of us know someone or have ourselves had a cancer diagnosis, and sometimes it ends up well and sometimes it doesn't. So cancer is a serious illness, serious disease that affects many, many, many of us. So the question is cancer a problem with cell division, and I'm going to mention this in just a second, that old cell cycle up there, versus a genetic disease, meaning in the genes. Now, I know that you've heard of genes that are associated with cancer, like the BRCA genes are involved with breast cancer. There are 2 BRCA genes, and they're involved with breast cancer and ovarian cancer, but is cancer also a problem with cell division? So what I told you was that cancer is where cells divide out of control. So let's see, is it a problem with cell division? Might be. Is it a problem with genes? You've heard of these genes before, so, and once again, if you say that or both, you know the answer is both. And how would lifestyle changes lower your cancer risk? I think I like this terminology better than what it says in the discussion board posting, because you can never prevent cancer, but you can certainly lower your cancer risk over your lifetime. You'll also talk about environmental carcinogens, and there are so many of them. Oh my goodness, so many. Just start looking. Asbestos, formaldehyde, benzene, oh, there's so many, nitrates, nitrites, those are in your food, and how you might remove these from the environment, because that is very important. Exposure to environmental carcinogens raises your cancer risk. Okay, so take a look at the cell cycle that I've drawn over here to the right of your screen, and you will see some letters. So this is the life cycle of a cell, and you start at the uppermost point, like 12 o'clock. And then you see G1. Okay, what do the G's mean? The G's used to stand for gap, because we had no idea what was going on in the cells. So Now, of course, we have changed that terminology and we call these growth phases of the cell cycle. But before we didn't know what they did. So you have G1, and up there at the top you have something called G0. I will get back to that in just a second. So during G1, the cell increases in size, increases the number of mitochondria, chloroplast, all the different organelles in the cell, except for the nucleus, of course, but lots of proteins are produced during this time, lots of different enzymes, and there's just general cell growth in the G1 phase of the cell cycle. Then you have the S phase. The S stands for synthesis, and this is where DNA is replicated. So you've got a set amount of DNA in this cell in whatever form it's in. In a bacterial cell, it's a single circular chromosome. In our cells, there are 46 chromosomes. And so in the synthesis phase of the cell cycle, the DNA is replicated so that you can then have or make 2 daughter cells. In the G2 phase, this is where all your machinery that's necessary for cell division gets produced, like the centrioles, if you're a eukaryotic cell, the mitotic spindle fibers, etc. So the cell division machinery is produced during G2. And then you have up there at the top M, which stands for mitosis, or meiosis, if that's what the cell does. But in general, mitosis. And so that's a division of the chromosomes in the nucleus, if you're a eukaryotic cell. And then C stands for cytokinesis. That's the division of the whole rest of the cell. Okay? And so then if you get all the way back up there to 12 o'clock, that means now you have 2 daughter cells. So you started with a mother cell, and now you have 2 daughter cells that are replicas of that original cell. Now let me go back to G0. So the job of a cell is not to reproduce. The job of a cell is to do some kind of work. If you're a muscle cell, then you contract and release and, do work. If you're a blood cell, you carry oxygen, or you fight off an enemy like a pathogen, virus, like SARS-CoV-2. So cells have jobs. This is not represented in the cell cycle except up there at G0. So cells usually come out of the cell cycle, stop this cell division process, and land up in what we call G0 phase. G0 is where the cell does its work. This is the majority of the time where the cell spends its time in G0 because it has work to do. All right, with a cancer cell, the problem is that it never lands in G0. It just keeps going round and round and round and round the cell cycle. And also there are checkpoints along the way, along the cell cycle. Checkpoints are places where the cell stops and evaluates, okay, is everything in place to go on to the next phase or not? And if not, I'm going to stop here and I'm going to fix whatever I need to fix. I'm going to make new mitochondria. I'm going to produce centrioles, whatever, depending on the checkpoint. It stops at this place until it gets itself fixed and everything's in place, and then it can move on in the cell cycle. Cancer cells also disregard these checkpoints, and so they just keep going round and round and round the cell cycle, never stopping, no matter whether anything's wrong or not. Okay, so that's how cancer relates to the cell cycle. And remember, cancer cells never stop in that G0 phase. All right, what else do we have going on? You also have milestone 3 of the final project. Now, just to start out, this should be in the format of PowerPoint slides. And if you don't use PowerPoint, that's perfectly fine. You know what I mean. You need some slides to show me for this particular assignment. Use Google Slides. Google Slides is free if you don't have PowerPoint. And I'm sure there are plenty of other software applications out there that make slides. So make slides for this one. Here are the different parts of this milestone 3. This is the last part of your final project. Methods of conservation, so how is this particular topic conserved? If you're looking at the health of Lake Erie, what are the ways that the health of this particular lake can be conserved? Education. Why is education about this topic important? So explain this. Solutions. What are the different solutions? There's not going to be one single solution. List of solutions. And then, of course, you're going to explain these in the final project. Are there any ethical considerations? And what I want you to be sure to include here is laws, guidelines, regulations that regulate this particular topic. So if you're looking at endangered species, there's the Endangered Species Act. So you need to discuss this because this is important. It helps to regulate what we do with endangered plants and animals that we know of. It helps to preserve them. So you need to explain this. What are the positive and negative aspects of this issue? There will always be both of these. So you can say global warming, well, there aren't any positive aspects of this. Oh, yes, there are. Fossil fuel companies are making a lot of money off of selling fossil fuel. The car companies, the automobile industry is positively affected by global warming because they're selling more and more cars, even though they need to switch over to other fuels. So you see, there are positive aspects of every issue. Now, are they outweighed by the negative aspects? A great possibility, because that's why there must be a problem with this thing that you're talking about. And also the personal impact. How can you change? How can you change your specific behavior to fix whatever this problem is or to help fix it? Okay? Include citations in the text, because you are using references, you are using information from other sources. So include citations and include references at the end. Label all of your sections. So there should be a section called Methods of Conservation. There should be one called Education. Please label your sections. This is very important. Otherwise, I don't know that you know which section it is that you're talking about. This is not just an essay. These are specific topics that you need to cover on your topic that you have chosen for your final project. Okay, and as always, if you need anything, please just give me a shout through email, m.sigmon@snhu.edu, and I will be glad to answer your questions. I hope that you have a wonderful week this week.